Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. A little bit of chaos here in New England as the Patriots continue to make their end-of-season moves with their head coaching position. We're going to get into every angle of it with the Senator Phil Perry, the king of the unwanted follow-up question. Additionally, what we first have to dive into is the Mike Vrabel topic, the giant former Patriots linebacker and Patriots Hall of Famer cannonballs into the coaching pool today. Does he upset any floats anywhere? And how does it change the conversation here in New England? Phil, come on in here. Vrabel is obviously an extremely interesting candidate because of his background here in New England. Also, the fact that he had 2 years left on his contract with Tennessee and they're going to dissolve their relationship. Why?
It seems as though he has run afoul of general manager Ran Carthon. And, maybe that's putting it too harshly, but there clearly seems to have been a difference of opinion, and ownership there in Tennessee has opted to, now that Vrabel has been married up with two different general managers who he seems to have butted heads with. Ownership in Tennessee is deciding to go with the general manager's vision here, is what it seems like. Now, did Mike Vrabel want out? The Titans are saying, no, he never requested to be released of his duties there with the Titans, but it seems as though clearly things were not simpatico, head coach, front office. And when you don't have that, Tom, you're going to have a dissolved union.
Yep. Now, as it relates to the Patriots, first we have to get some closure on the head coach here in New England. As I reported in December, a decision was made further back in the year that the Patriots would be parting ways with Bill Belichick at the end of the season. The end of the season is upon us. They have not parted ways, but the decision remains. Bill Belichick will not be back as the head coach for the New England Patriots in 2024. That being the case, why the wait? And I think it has a lot to do with the untangling of a 24-year union with an individual. And that untangling is going to take some time, especially if you want to keep the relationship intact going forward. So as the untangling continues, Phil, is there a point at which you think the fan base starts to say, hey, what's taking so long? Do we know what we're doing down there? Even though I think the Crafts have been extremely methodical in everything that they've tried to do.
Yeah, but I'm sure there is a section of the fan base that would feel that way. Hey, the interview process has started. Our buddy Albert Breer reporting that Adam Peters, who might be the favorite general manager candidate on the market this offseason, is going to be interviewing with the Commanders tonight. Maybe it's already started as you and I are speaking here. So when that stuff is underway and you see head coaching candidate X, Y, Z has been requested for an interview by team ABC, I could see Patriots fans start to get antsy. But Tom, what I come back to is they can afford to be patient, in my opinion.
The Patriots can.
The Patriots can.
Why?
And Patriots fans, if they're feeling as though their team doesn't have a plan.
Well, not if it's Vrabel, though, right? Unless they're going to stick with, again, we reported that the most likely scenario would be Mayo and O'Brien stay. Mayo becomes the head coach. But if they are wanting to get into that pool, there is urgency, I think Patriots fans would say.
And I would understand that. Do they want to get into that pool? Does Mike Vrabel all of a sudden being free and on the market, should that cause a change in course for the Crafts if they have, to use the word you just used, been methodical about this whole thing? Is this something that has been dropped into their laps and could move them off their spot, so to speak?
I think that would be a groundswell of interest because, look, you have Mayo. I think there's a hell of a lot of similarities between Mayo and Vrabel, a lot of them, beyond the fact that they both played linebacker for the Patriots at a high level. They are both, and I know that you said that Vrabel's less of a player's coach. I think he is very much a player's coach. And I know you weren't saying he wasn't. Just I think that they're both
That was in a previous conversation, I think. But yeah. I don't know if the listeners were privy to that.
They weren't on the conference call with us.
They weren't. But I said he's probably a little bit more of an old school guy relative to the Sean McVays and the Mike McDaniels.
And I think the Mayo will be too. Interestingly enough, I think Mayo is going to be a hell of a lot more old school than people think. I mean, he grew up with his grandfather was the man in the house as he grew up in military background, and I think the Mayo is going to be a lot harder than people imagine. Plus, you got Bill O'Brien standing there as well. So there's a lot of similarities there. What argues for Mike Vrabel is the simple fact that he's done it longer. He's been an NFL coach of the year. He has coached in the playoffs. He's done all those things. D'Amico Ryans hadn't. How did he end up relative to the Tennessee Titans this year? So you can go back and forth on that. But if the decision made has been what Robert Kraft indicated at the owners' meetings when he called Jerod Mayo the heir apparent, and he also said we're in a transition phase, then the emergence, I think, of any candidates right now, including the most prime candidate, Mike Vrabel, might not move them at all.
Well, and doesn't it look like, Tom, based on just the statement released last offseason where they announced they hadn't even reached an extension with Mayo yet, but they announced they were working on an extension with Jerod Mayo, as he just so happened to be a candidate for, an interview requestee, at least, for head coaching jobs in the NFL. I mean, they made it pretty clear how they felt about Mayo before the season even began. And so if they had this in mind, and maybe the timeline has been expedited, right? Because they never envisioned their team would be this bad at 4-13. But if this was the transition that they envisioned, does Mike Vrabel's availability blow that up? And I think he's a good fit in theory, no question. And I think he's a good coach. But is he such a slam dunk that he should change their plans in that fashion? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're doing the job as owners, and here's the funny thing is we haven't experienced these kinds of transitions as media members within the Patriots, although we covered it with Tom Brady and fans covered it and dealt with it. The Crafts go through this operation in business all the time, I would imagine, in hiring new managers and hiring new individuals to run different companies. And so they understand the amount of time that these things will take, especially with somebody who is an absolute legend in his field. So, and they also understand you can't just tap somebody on the shoulder on Thursday and say, you're the guy, without putting him in a position to succeed. So that's what's interesting to me, is if it isn't Mike Vrabel and if it isn't Bill Belichick, and it is, as everything is pointed to, Jerod Mayo, what will be incumbent upon the Crafts is explaining to the fan base and the media, and this is why. When we talked about it last week, the reasons that Jerod Mayo is so impressive, and he backed it up in explaining how he felt about the report out there about him, quote unquote, rubbing people the wrong way. And he handled it very adeptly. But what's the support staff around him look like to help with the administrative, et cetera? So that's all going to be very interesting to see. Now, with Bill this week, he made it clear on Monday in his postseason press conference that he's got a contract and he's not afraid to use it.
I'm in a contract, do what I always do, which is, every day I come in, work as hard as I can to help the team in whatever way I can. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'll meet with Robert like I always do, meet with the staff, meet with the personnel department, kind of recap the season, look at the big picture, and then look at some of the individual situations that are, looming one way or another. But that's, obviously a long way off from where we are right now. And so we'll start, at the end of the day, putting the pieces back together in terms of, setting things up to go through a good detailed analysis and to kind of, start a reconstruction, if you will.
So, Phil, the word reconstruction there caught my ear because it's just 6 weeks ago that he was talking about the New Orleans Saints, post-Saints. Yeah, post-Saints. And said, we're starting over. Then they went and lost to the Raiders. You know, the Patriots have lost to in 2023? Two teams that fired their head coaches. The Raiders and who else?
Chargers.
Oh, the Commanders. Raiders and Commanders and Chargers.
Yeah.
And they also lost to a team that has moved on from its defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, the Giants. It was like, oh, it's crazy. But Bill is going to show up for work until told otherwise, which is which is what you would expect, I guess.
It is, but that word reconstruction stood out to me too. And does any 71-year-old in any field, Tom, want to embark on a reconstruction? It's just, I believe he wants to be here. And I believe, as you say, he will continue to show up to work and he will provide real effort until he's told to go home. But boy, it's a massive undertaking. It feels like we've talked before about just how many times they will have to hit this offseason personnel wise before we even get to head coach and general manager. And Tom, they had a reset of the cap in 2020 that he was very open about. You had a restart after the blowouts to the Cowboys and Saints. And now you've got a reconstruction. At what point do you look at the general contractor there and say it's time for us to
reboot,
renew, refresh at your position? But thanks for all you've done. I think we're there.
And being there, it's interesting because what was the proposal that was going to change the Kraft's mind if Bill was able to do so? It would be being able to somehow reconfigure his job responsibilities. And here's what Bill said when he was asked about relinquishing his role as personnel guru, overlord, and any drafting responsibilities. Josh Brogadier from WCVB asked this question.
Wondering if you've given any serious thought to relinquishing the personnel, maybe some of the draft responsibilities, and coaching the team, which you were saying yesterday is something you still really want to do.
Yeah, I'm for whatever, collectively we decide as an organization is the best thing to help our football team. And, I have multiple roles in that, and I rely on a lot of people to help me in those responsibilities. If somebody's got to have the final say, I have it. I rely on a lot of other people to help, and however that, whatever that process is, I'm only part of it.
So, Phil, from that answer, we got a whole lot of people who said, "Oh, Bill's ready to give up the personnel stuff," and I said, "Come on, he is a master linguist." And he said he would be in favor of what, quote, collectively we decide as an organization is best to help our football team. Bill's part of that collective. So you think he's going to agree to punt on the final say? You think, for instance, he's going to be fine with somebody else wants to take Jaden Daniels, but somebody has handed Bill an unbelievable package of picks at number 3. And Bill says we should do this deal. And the other guy goes, "Thanks for coming. We're not doing that. We're going to take Daniels." Bill's head would pop off his shoulders entirely, maybe even land back on his shoulders backwards. So you can't have that.
Well, then you've got your face in a hood there. That's not comfortable.
Oh, you can't have it.
Can't have it.
Just someone telling him, "Hey, this fat chunk of cap space we're going to use, we're going to spend it all on the offensive line like we should have last year in these 3 receivers." He's going to convulse. He cannot give up final say.
I don't think so either, but I did read into his tone, Tom, when we were having that discussion. It was the tone of someone who was open to the discussion. He wasn't saying that I would give it up or that whatever they say goes and I'm just happy to be here. But there was a tone there that really surprised me during that video conference that we had, because that's the kind of question, Tom, that he would get and immediately respond with, "Yeah, I'm not about to get into a whole lot of hypothetical situations here." Okay. The
Right.
season just ended yesterday. The Crafts and I will speak, and whatever gets decided in there, that's what gets decided. It was hey, I'm open to whatever is best for the team. And so that at least to me, it left the door ajar to that kind of discussion. And it was part of an overall table setting by him to send the message, I'm under contract. I'm willing to budge on some things, potentially, maybe, but I want to be here. And if I'm not here in the foreseeable future, maybe even later this week, it's because they didn't want me here. So whatever comes out, whatever gets said, I want you to know now that this is my job. I'm treating it like my job. I take pride in my job, just like my dad always told me to. And if I'm not here, it's because of them, not because of me. Now everybody knows that. The cameras are rolling.
Right.
The recording light is on. You all know it now. I want to be here.
Yeah. I didn't try to get out of here. I like it here. I've done a good job. I wanted to be able to clean it up. And that's really interesting too, because, I had a conversation a couple of years ago when Josh McDaniels went to the Raiders, and I expressed to someone high up in the organization, look, McDaniels is gone. People are going to come after Mayo. What's the succession plan? And it was explained to me, look, we don't think about that. The reason we don't really think about it is because we don't know when Bill's done. And Bill's never going to leave us in a situation where the team isn't buttoned down and ready to go. Because unlike Bill Parcells, this has been a part of Bill Belichick's life and legacy. He wasn't a trunk slammer like Parcells was, just passing through onto the next thing. And there was the belief that Bill's going to be here as long as Bill wants to be here. When he's going to go, he's going to let us know well in advance so we can prepare for it. And that wasn't that long ago. But the circumstances changed in a way that having the season they did last year with the coaching staff decisions, the disintegration of the first round quarterback, regardless of who's to blame, him or the coaching staff, or however it's shared. And then this season with ultimatums levied, putting a roster offensively out there that could not compete. And then a 4-13 season have all conspired to leave it with what we thought we could go ahead, and it turns out we can't. So I think that's what's probably difficult for Bill to understand. He would like to come back. The Crafts have always believed that Bill would never leave this team in any level of disrepair, and he probably still isn't. If you want to say getting the third overall pick, good work. But it is painful, I'm sure, all the way around as this comes to a screeching halt. Well, less than screeching halt, grinding halt over the course of the next few days. I do want to ask this. So it was interesting. Bill Belichick's close friend, Mike Lombardi, former Patriots executive, former Cleveland Browns consigliere for Bill Belichick. He always does a great job on his podcasts. Here we was. Elmer Fudd. Speaking about Bill and the Georgia and the Atlanta Falcons and the possibility that Bill can follow Arthur Smith. How do you fill Arthur Smith's shoes? Who knows? But here's Lombardi on that possibility.
That tells me they're big game hunting. And if something happens up in New England, I think they're going to be big game hunting on him. And they should. And they should. If I'm Arthur Blank and I have a chance to go get the greatest coach of all time, I'm coming.
Phil, you've mentioned Atlanta a couple of times. Independent of Mike Lombardi, Bill Belichick, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Jupiter, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Nantucket, flying on a big old Atlanta plane. What do you think?
I think it's a fit. To me, it's the team that makes the most sense for Bill Belichick right now. And just talking to some people who are familiar with the organization and specifically with Arthur Blank's frame of mind. I mean, it's no secret. He's not getting any younger. I think there's some urgency from ownership in Atlanta to win right now. And what better way than to bring in arguably the greatest coach of all time? And Tom, they're really, if you look at them in a bad division, they might be a quarterback away from truly contending.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is Kirk Cousins an option for them? May have some Atlanta ties himself. Maybe he's willing to go down there, and then you start with a new head coach, a new quarterback. It's plug and play. It's ready to go. You don't have to train a rookie QB. You don't have to train a first-time head coach, which Arthur Blank has done a number of times and hasn't gotten to where he wants to get to. So that makes a lot of sense because the defense is good enough right now. They've got a ready-made running game. They have a couple nice weapons there. They need a quarterback, but You're in the NFC South, Tom. You might win 5 games in the division next year if you get the right quarterback in there.
Yeah. And our guy remains 15 games away from passing Don Shula. You never know. He might go 15-2 next year and then on his way to the Super Bowl with the Falcons, where he's going to choke out the Patriots 31-3. I don't know. It's been a long freaking month. It's been a long year. It's been a long career. All that said, let's put a cork in it for now.
We got to go do quick slants.
Yeah, we got quick slants. And, honestly, folks, I don't think this week's going to get any quieter. But as we said, steady as she goes. Bill Belichick, the decision we reported on last month that the Patriots would part ways with him remains the one that will ultimately happen. So, peace out, Girl Scouts.